Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Sauce. I'm recording this before Tuesday night's game, so I don't know how we did last night yet. This video is for Wednesday. We got two more MAC games. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
First up, we got Ball State on the road at Bowling Green here. BGSU laying 5.5 points at home, total sitting at 39.5. This is starting to look like a pros versus public setup. Early action was on Bowling Green. Public is definitely on Bowling Green. But when this number hit 6 on Monday night, sharp action came in heavy on Ball State. They bought those sixes right up. We're now back down to 5.5. So Ball State was able to grab a win last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, because they had the bye. A rare win for Ball State football. They were able to get the run game going against Central Michigan. But as a whole, this Ball State offense hasn't been good. 131st overall, 126th effective rush, 131st effective pass. We don't even know what's going on at quarterback for this team. They brought in Lane Hatcher through the transfer portal, but they benched him in the middle of the first game against Kentucky. Then they put in a freshman. His name's Samanza, I think that's how you say it, Samanza. Now they've got Kyle Kelly starting, and you know what? The 2 games since he took over, Ball State's been competitive in both. They played Toledo to a 1-score game. They lost 13-6. Not that the offense did much, but it's Toledo. They have a good defense. And then they won last week. And last week he was pretty good. 13-16, 101 yards through the air, 15 carries, 64 yards on the ground, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Few questions we need to answer here. Does this kid Kelly at quarterback all of a sudden make Ball State's offense better? I mean, he's a dual threat guy. The other 2 options are pocket passers. Maybe that's what they needed. Or was this a case of catching a defense off guard? I mean, the other 2 guys are pocket passers, like I said, so they bring in a guy who's got some wheels, and Central Michigan just wasn't prepared for it. Or option 3, was it the fact that they just played Central Michigan, whose defense is absolute ass? We're going to find out in this one, because instead of being at home against a bad Central Michigan defense, they're actually going on the road against a Bowling Green Falcons defense that's been pretty good. 75th overall, 66th in effective rush, 84th in effective pass. And Bowling Green's got a couple games of film on this kid now, so Kelly starting at quarterback shouldn't catch them off guard. So I don't expect a ton of offense from Ball State in this one. One thing you do have to give him credit for, though, since Kelly took over at quarterback, they haven't turned the ball over. The total for this game's at 39.5. Points may be tough to come by in this one, and when one side is getting 5.5 points, sometimes just having a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over is all you need to cover that number. On the other side of the ball, this is where you can actually start to find some angles for Ball State. That Cards defense is coming to life a little bit recently. In their last 3 games, they're allowing just 18 points per game and under 300 total yards per game. And this Bowling Green offense has just gotten so one-dimensional. It's not at all what I was expecting entering the season. They brought in Connor Bazelak through the transfer portal to play quarterback. He's from Missouri, and then he was at Indiana. I thought the Falcons were going to have themselves a little bit of an offense here, at least a passing offense. That hasn't been the case at all. Connor Bazelak looks pretty bad so far this season. Bowling Green is just 113th overall offensively according to BetaRank, 90th in effective rush, and 115th in effective pass. The bright spot in the Bowling Green offense has been the run game. That kid Stewart's been running the ball well. 254 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. But the thing is, Ball State's run defense has actually been surprisingly good recently. In the last 3 games, they've held their opponent to under their season rushing average. And I'm afraid that might be Bowling Green's only hope offensively is to get the run game going, because they've completely abandoned the pass. They're running a 2-quarterback system now. They got this kid, Camden Orth, who's a run-first guy, and they switch him and Bazelak out. In their last 3 games, they're throwing the ball on just 35.4% of their offensive snaps, 122nd in the FBS. They're averaging just 77 yards through the air per game in those 3. This game's going to be a battle of rushing attacks, and yeah, Bowling Green is the better team, but at 5.5 points, I feel a lot more comfortable on the dog in this one. I think this is a low-scoring rushing battle. It sounds like a field goal game to me, so give me Ball State. I'm taking Ball State plus 5.5 next game. Some more action for us. We got Kent State on the road at Akron. What a matchup here. I mean, this might be the 2 worst teams in the FBS. Akron is laying 3.5 points at home, total sitting at 38.5. Action's pretty one-sided on this one. I mean, the public's a little closer to even. It's definitely leaning towards Kent State. Sharp action is definitely all over Kent State in this one. Update. So after I finish recording this, the line moved. The consensus line is now at 4. Actually, there's a few 4.5s out there as well, so move the other way. You want to know how many times Akron has scored 20 points in a game this season? 3 times. Just 3 times. And you ready to hear them? Week 1 against Temple, one of the worst defenses in the FBS. They lost 24-21, so they scored just 21 points on one of the worst defenses in the country. The following week, they played Morgan State, an FCS team. They scored just 24 points. They squeaked out a 24-21 win. So they scored 21 points against Temple, one of the worst defenses in the FBS, and then they scored 24 points on an FCS program. The third and final time they reached 20 points was in quadruple overtime. They only scored 17 in regulation. Other than those 3 games, Akron hasn't scored more than 14 points in any of their other 5 games this season. I know it's Kent State. I know they're probably the worst team in the FBS. They lost their entire coaching staff from last year. They basically lost their entire roster also. They haven't come within 13 points of an FBS team this entire season. I mean, to be fair, they've had kind of a tough schedule, though, for a MAC school if you look at it. And if you take a closer look and you look at their last couple games when they're finally seeing some teams that they can compete with, they did that. I mean, they were actually competitive. I know the final score of the Eastern Michigan game was 28-14, but Kent State actually outgained Eastern Michigan significantly, 343-218. I know betting Kent State just seems like an insane decision, but laying 3.5 points with Akron seems equally insane to me. So I'm going to take the points. If you want our top bets for all sports, parlays of the day, or you want to join our Discord, head over to KyleKirms.com. The information is right there on the homepage. College football, week 10, action. Let's remember to bet responsibly. These games are always a little crazy. Let's have ourselves a good one, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.